Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Real simple today, guys. I just want to talk about another rod and reel setup. Got some questions on the drop shot setup, spinning reel setup, spinning rod setup, and I'm going to keep it simple. If I had to choose one spinning rod for all my applications, and my applications are going to be throwing a wacky rig, a wacky sink, a wacky general, throwing a drop shot, throwing a shaky head, throwing a swim bait. What am I leaving out, guys? What else do we throw with spinning rods? Throwing a little bitty hair jig. The list goes on and on. If I had to narrow it down to one rod and reel, what is that rod and reel going to be? It's going to be a 6.6 medium action rod. This one right here, it will do all I need it to do. Throwing a tube. I can make this rod work for these things. Yes, is there a rod that would be better for throwing a big tube out on St. Clair? Yes, there would be. I just would want a longer rod, a little bit stiffer, but I could catch a lot of fish with this one and it'd be just fine. So that's what I'm trying to say. Mine's a Bass Pro Platinum rod and reel. For years, I used the Pro Qualifier version. They still make it in a medium action. Made a lot of money with it. It would be my budget rod and reel, or my budget rod. If we're on a budget for this and you need to get one a little bit less expensive, go with that Pro Qualifier. You cannot beat that, or that Carbon Light. Those are great rods for the money that you're spending on them. Way better than what I would need to go make my living, to pay my electric bill, to pay my house bill, to pay my truck bill. I could still do my job with those less expensive rods. So with that said, spend what your budget allows. I happen to be able to get these right here, and they work good, and they're about 150 bucks. Still I'm not using a $300 rod like a lot of guys. I tend to go with a little bit bigger reel. I really like the size 3 or 3000 reel. It just has a bigger spool, holds more line. I like a little bit bigger reel. I don't like them little bitty ones. So this is a little bit bigger reel. I generally spool it up with either 10 or 15 pound braid. I like the yellow braid because I can see it. If I skip that general back up underneath that dock, I've done it a bunch, in the cup events and up north smallmouth fishing. I lay that braid on top of the water. It acts like a bobber. You can just watch that braid and like, man, that bait's falling. All of a sudden that braid takes off. That yellow braid is the deal for that. I mean, it's just, you can watch that braid, and the instant it starts to change speeds, I'm going to set the hook, no, I got a bite. Let's talk a little bit about leaders. What I use for leaders, 90% of the time, I'm going to use 8-pound fluorocarbon. I don't want my leader to be in my reel if I'm casting it. So like if you're casting a swim bait, like a little power swimmer or whatever those little swim baits are, on a 3/16 quarter-ounce head, do not have too long a leader. You do not want your knot to come down there in your reel, because the instant you cast it, there's times that thing will catch right there in your reel, and it's a nightmare. A lot of times it'll break your line. So make sure your leader length, when you get it to the position to cast it, like right there, mine's in the reel a little bit. I'd have to pull it out in order to cast it, and then I could cast that thing. It's still a little long. So this rod here was actually set up, my next thing I was going into, fishing vertical. And the reason I can tell it was set up for vertical is because my tag length. A lot of people ask how long of a tag on a drop shot. Well, here's my rule. The shallower I'm fishing, and if I'm casting it, the shorter that tag's going to be. It's going to be 3, 4, 5 inches at the most, when I'm casting it. If I'm vertical fishing it, or almost vertical fishing it, a lot of times you pitch it out in front of the boat 20, 30 feet, and then you creep up on it, or like in that grass video I did, fishing outside grass lines with a drop shot. It's a longer leader because I'm pitching it out in front, and I'm almost fishing it vertical to 45, so I'm going to have something longer. So then when I'm doing that, I can have a longer leader. I can actually reel that knot in, because if I'm just pitching it or opening the bail and letting it go down when I see a fish on my Lowrance, it doesn't get chewed up. Now, about weights. Let's talk a little bit about weights. I'm pretty simple on weights, guys. The drop shot weights is a weight that you can lose a bunch of. And tungsten's expensive, let's just face it. I buy the 1/2 ounce, the biggest ones they've got. These are actually 3/8 because they were out of 1/2 ounce. And then I just adjust it. I just take my pliers. So this is a 3/8 ounce weight. Let's say I want a 1/4 ounce or 3/16. Man, I just, bam, now I got like a 5/16. Bam, now I got a 1/4 ounce weight. That's what I do with it because I can adjust it on the fly. I buy the big 1/2 ounce ones. It can be whatever I need it to be for the conditions I have. I can tie it on. I don't lose near as many of them. It just, that works for me. Now, to the hooks. When I vertical fish, I just use a drop shot hook. That's for vertical fishing. A mistake that I see a lot of people make when you're using this style hook. When they go to hook their super secret bait on there, they hook it up on there too far. Get a close-up of that. They'll hook that up there like that. And what happens when they do that, they're trying to get further back in the meat. What happens is that really causes the bait to spiral as it's going down. So don't do that. Hook it out towards the end. Okay? Hook it right there. That's going to keep you from getting all that line twist when you're drop shotting. Get it out there towards the end. With some hooks, you know, a way you can rig it to, if you're worried about those fish short striking you, run the bait up on there a little bit. And now I've got a little bit more meat. You can rig it like that also. That's just another way at times. If I feel like they're nipping at it or I'm not quite getting them hooked like I want to, I'll run that bait all the way up to the knot, just like that, and I'm going to get a little bit more meat on that hook to get that drop shot. When I am fishing grass or I am casting this bait shallow, anytime I'm casting it, I'm basically going to Texas rig that thing. I'm going to get a little bit of the worm, just a very little bit. You can see right there, just if you're looking, just get a little bit of that worm. Run it up here on it. You know, my line would be right there. And then I've got that keeper that keeps it there. And I'm going to just set that back in that hook or back in that bait. So now my drop shot's super weedless, super straight. Everything's in line. This is the hook I want to use if I'm casting it, or in cover or in grass, you know, that drop shot video, that kind of stuff. That's the hook I want to use for that. So on this style hook, it's generally a 1/0. If I'm fishing heavier cover, big fish down in Florida, I'll go up to a 2/0, maybe even a 3/0 for this style hook. But generally it's a 1 or a 1/0 size hook. You know, this would be another good one, just a EWG. You know, if you can't find these in EWG, I used this one for years. Just a 1/0 EWG works great in that situation when I'm trying to keep my drop shot weedless. Now back to that vertical fishing. Just a 1/0 or a 1. That's the only two sizes I use when I'm vertical fishing. You know, if I'm using a really big bait, and really the only time I use a really big bait would be like, you know, maybe up on St. Clair, like a big power jerk shad or something, I'll go up to a 2/0 drop shot hook. But those are the hooks right there I use. Just going to show you a little bit my drop shot box. It's a mess. I fished all season on this thing, but like right there, there's one of them big 1-ounce ones. I actually painted that thing black. You know, when you first get that lead, it's real shiny, and I'll just paint those things black. This one's not shiny because it's been rolling around in here, but I just painted them black the night before. But I can cut that weight down to whatever size I want. I obviously got a bunch of other tungsten weights just left over from the past. I got some big 3/4 ounce weights when you're fishing like super heavy current, those kinds of things. Yeah, that's my drop shot box right there. It's kind of just a mess right now. I need to get it cleaned up, but that's how I keep it. It's a sealed box. It works really well for me. Guys, I hope this stuff helps you. That's my drop shot rig. You know, we didn't get into other rigs. You know, this video really was about just what rod. If I had to choose one spinning rod, one spinning reel, what would I use? That would be the setup I would use for all my applications. It's going to work from that shaky head to that drop shot to that swim bait to that wacky worm. It'll be the rod that you'll see in my rod box and in my boat anytime you walk up. Hope this helps, guys. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and see you guys next week. Thanks a lot for following along.